How many of you are friends with Donald Trump or Richard Branson or even Mark Cuban? No? Me neither. So you might ask yourself, when it comes to networking, how is it going to benefit my business? Because if I don't know these types of people, surely networking is going to be pointless. Well, that's exactly what this episode is about, and how networking can absolutely improve the performance and the trajectory of your podcast. Welcome to The Real Journey. The power of networking. Anybody who's ever read any business book, any personal development book, any entrepreneurs books would have 100% heard the term networking. And ultimately, it comes down to the simple fact of you do not know everything. You won't, and you're not meant to. You are meant to be able to speak to other people, to learn other aspects of business, to learn from other people. And that's what networking is about. It's about connecting with people who are on a similar journey as you, or within a similar industry, or want the same business model type as you, but maybe in a different field. Maybe they're selling a different type of product. Maybe they're providing a different type of service. But ultimately, networking should be bringing a bunch of people together, or speaking with a bunch of people and putting them, I guess, to a degree within your contact books. You have got people who you can reach out to. You have got people who you can get in touch with if you've got questions, if you're having problems, if you need something doing. A network is massively, massively important when you are building your business, when you are on your journey altogether. And that can be in any walk of life. It doesn't strictly mean anybody who has a business has to have a network. If you want to go to the gym, it's good to have a network of people that are also going to the gym, that have maybe done trialing different diets, trialing different workout plans, trialing different gyms. Because if you've got those networks and you're speaking to those people, it can actually halve the time that you're doing. If I'm doing one workout plan and somebody else is doing another, and they're seeing faster gains, they're seeing faster benefits, I've not had to do my workout plan and then switch to that one to see. I can see it's working for them. I can go up, I can speak to them, I can ask them a few questions, see if it suits the goals that I'm aspiring to reach. And I can swap there and then. And same with your diet, same with your car, same with any walk of life. If you've got a network and you've got people who you can speak to and people who are also trialing different things, you can learn 10 times faster because they're going to experience something that you're not. And it just makes absolute sense. If you're going to try and grow a business, no matter what model you want to go with, it makes sense to have people around you and have people you can speak to that have either done it, doing it, or are thinking about doing it, because then you become the power within that relationship. Then you become the provider of the information. If somebody can come to you and speak to you about a business that they're thinking of starting and you've already started it, you can tell them what not to do, you can tell them what to do, and you can almost sort of reaffirm in your own head why you're doing certain things. Because if you're teaching somebody else, it helps you become better. Because not only do you just know the information, you know why you know the information. So networking is absolutely key when you're starting a business, and it's something you should always be looking to do on a daily basis. Just network with the right people. Now, I know this personally because when I started off on this journey and starting my video editing business, one of the first sums of money I made was purely through networking. I was speaking to a bunch of people via social media. We got into a group, we got speaking. This is also where your own personal drive and the way that you hold yourself and present yourself is going to be wonders for you, because people don't just want to network, especially when they're busy, especially when they're starting to grow a business and starting to bring in money. They don't just want to network with anybody who's doing a business. They will look for certain attributes that you have that they think, oh, okay, I like what he says here, or I like how he holds himself, I like how he speaks, I like the goals that he's got, I like the drive that he's got. So networking's brilliant, but you always need to remember nobody's just going to want to network with anybody. You have to focus on yourself as well as reaching out to people or just having conversations a lot of the time. And don't say no to every opportunity, because you don't know what it might lead to. But by no means does that mean say yes to every opportunity as well, because it will just soak all of your time if you're saying yes to everybody else and not focusing on yourself. So what basically ended up happening is I was speaking to this group of people, and the one of them actually ran another business, full-time business, very successful as far as I could see. And he liked how fast and he liked how well presented I made a couple of logos that we were all sort of designing together. This was all used with AI. I used AI to do it all. And he liked the accuracy, he liked how it was presented, he liked how fast I could do it as well. We'd be speaking about a logo and 10-15 minutes later, I threw a logo in front of her. What does this look like? And because of this, he went on to sign a client via his business and actually reached out to me and said, the client's not happy with the website because they've not got a logo. And they've asked, do I provide website design services? And he reached out to me to do it. So I obviously did the logo, a little bit more in depth than what I had ever done before, because usually I'll just use AI and that's it. I don't tend to change too much about it because AI is pretty accurate. But when you've got a customer that wants specific things, you've got to adapt, you've got to find a way to make it happen. Exactly what I did. Went back and forth with him for roughly about a week. And then he just turned around and asked me for the pros. Told him the pros, paid the money in. And that was the first time I realised that just being somebody who's able to do something. Now, I'm not promoting this as a business model, but if you just accept that you're the type of person who can just get something done, just accepting that is a massive, massive thing, and people will notice it as well, especially if you're networking in groups of people that are trying to grow a business. They'll notice if you're just a guy who can just get stuff done. I don't know how I'm going to get it done at the time of saying yes, or I don't know how all of the little I's and T's are going to work, but I can just get it done. I'm going to find a way to get it done because I've said it. I've said to you, I've made a promise to you, you've made a promise to your client. I'm not going to make myself look like an idiot, and I'm also not going to make you look like an idiot, because then that ruins the relationship. So just accepting and saying to yourself, I'll just find a way. You'll have so many opportunities that come at you, especially when it comes to making money in the beginning, that you could easily turn away because you don't know 100% how to do it. Now this, again, I don't want it to go too far and people are accepting government contracts on how to shift millions of pounds worth of guns to different countries if you do not know how to do that. But if it's something small, for example, let's take our good old copywriting friend, and he's used to ghostwriting on X, and somebody says, oh, can you do it on Threads, or can you send emails, or can you write me a web page copy? And you've never done it before. Don't say no just because you feel like an imposter. Say, absolutely, I can 100% get this done for you. It'll be X amount of time. Back and forth with them. Because one or two things are gonna happen there. You're either gonna do it, realise you can do it, and then that's another thing under your belt, or you're not gonna be able to do it, and because you've said yes, you've now got to learn. And you've now got to problem solve your way to providing this for the person you promised it to, because your ego is going to be involved. You've said, yes, I can do it. So now, yes, you have to do it. Yes, you have to find a way. Yes, you have to almost just overcome the imposter syndrome, because if you want to keep the relationship with this person that's reached out and basically offered you money in exchange for a service, you want to keep those relationships going well, especially in the beginning when they're sort of few and far between. So you'll just find a way to make it happen. And that's exactly what I did. And as I say, it opened my eyes to just, although I'm in video editing and I do as much as I can, just stick to video editing and reaching out to clients and providing the initial service, because as we spoke about before, having that one honed skill that you've got and being the go-to guy within that skill is far more lucrative than being a jack of all trades. But it doesn't necessarily mean that if the opportunities arise, you can't say yes, because one good thing about it is it's free money. Ultimately, somebody's approached you to get this service done, or to get your skill, and that could lead on to continuous work. Which, if you're earning nothing, what else are you gonna do? So I'd 100% always speak with people, and always, to a degree, I want this to be highlighted, to a degree, don't just say no to every opportunity. See if you can adapt a way to provide that value, or even if you can speak to somebody who knows how to do it and you just become a bit of a glorified middleman. There's nothing wrong with that, because you're then building a network. If you offer the skill to a friend, you take that skill and then you give it to another friend. You're the connect between the two, which is a great place to be. You've also provided him with some form of income, or some form of money basically. So he's going to be happy. He's then going to be open to, if you reach out to him again and you need him for your business, or you need him for other people's business, you've got a service you can offer, as well as the person you've given the service to is now going to think of you as a go-to guy. So it can be a continuous thing. So unless you absolutely screw it up, unless you accept way above your caliber, which you'll know at the time of having the conversation, unless you do that, it's only going to be a win-win for all parties. So always be networking, always be listening to other people's opportunities and seeing if there is a way that you can help in any way, shape or form, because it's only going to make you better. Your network is your net worth. Every aspiring entrepreneur would have heard this quote at least 10, 20, maybe even 50 times, because it's just thrown about so much. And it's thrown about so much because it is so true, especially as you start climbing the ladder and you start earning more and more and more. Your network is going to be a massive, massive factor when it comes to your business, because it allows you to reach out to more people. It allows you to be the go-to guy in certain industries. It allows you to grow your business so much faster, because rather than having to, for me, in my case, if I had to start growing video editors without any network whatsoever, I'd have to reach out to them. I'd have no referrals. I'd have to just trust that this is their work. I'd have to trust that they're going to do it in a timely manner. I'd have to just trust they can do it in the quality to the standard that I want it. Whereas if you've got a network and you've got another business owner who's used another video editor, or used another copywriter, or used another media manager, or used another anything, if they've used them and they can trust them, you've already then almost got somebody you can bring straight on board. Now, they might prefer to be a freelancer. They might even be overbooked or overworked, and they're not in a position to join your team full time. But because of your network, you know the person that knows them, therefore you know them. You can then ask, who do they know? Who do they trust? Who would they refer? And what you've done there is you've cut out all of the CV applications, or all of the resume applications. You don't have to scour through Upwork and through, I think it's Fiverr, freelance websites. You don't have to scale through all of them now, because you know people who know people. So, and if they trust them and they refer them to you, and you trust the person who's doing the referral, you've just saved yourself a boatload of time, a boatload of sort of failed interviews, or employees that, or team members that you brought on, it didn't work out. And if you're an uncomfortable person, you've now got to have an uncomfortable conversation with them that they're no good. And as easy as that might sound to some people, I imagine for a lot of people, it's not nice to tell somebody that you paid money to that you're no good at this job. You're not giving me the value that I thought I was going to get. Whereas if you're doing it through referrals, now again, I understand there's certain aspects of it that come off wrong. If you're hiring your cousin, for example, and your cousin's no good, and you've then got to have the conversation with him, that can be very uncomfortable as well. But this is why I'd say when you're looking to hire or when you're looking to take somebody on to do some gig work, it's always better to have that network already in place. So I've already spoken to a few people, to have already had the feelers out there, so you know, okay, if another logo design opportunity comes up, I'm going to speak to Callum. If another website design opportunity comes up, I'm going to speak to X person. If I need to write some tweets for somebody, I'm going to speak to this person. It's already good to almost just have that, at least 2 or 3 names within that bucket that you know you can speak out to. And that's why I say every opportunity. If somebody, because we all get them, somebody messages you in the DMs, rather than just powering them off, dependent on how they DM, I will put that out there because I know some of them can be. I had one today that just basically slagged off my website and said he could do a better one. And he's probably right, but because he just completely slagged off my work, I'm not interested now. So be careful of when I say every single person, because you don't want a list of 300 editors and then you've now got to pick between them. You want to learn to ask the right questions. You want to learn to finding pricing is a big one. You want to learn to finding time frames. Time zones is a massive one. Time zones, when it comes to any online work, is probably one of the biggest factors after quality and after speed. Because if you've got somebody on the other end of the globe to you, you can now work 24/7. So there's big questions that you want to be asking, and the only way you're going to learn what questions to ask is by speaking with people, is by networking. And again, I want to put this out there. It doesn't mean you spend all day in the DMs. It doesn't even mean that you spend a specific amount of time in the DMs. Somebody reaches out to you, just take a look, just take 2 minutes of your time, look at the message. Did it engage you? Was it a good outreach? Can you adapt it to your outreaching? Check out the profile. Do they look legit? Have they been posting consistently? Do they look like they know their stuff? Have they got a bit of a network? They got more followers than you? Have they got more people engaging with their content than you? There's always something, to a degree, you can take from every interaction, and you can work out, okay, this guy actually looks like he knows what he's doing. I don't need his service right now, but I want to speak to him with a bit of respect. I want to say to him, if I hear anybody that needs your service, you'll be the first person I refer to, building that trust. They will appreciate that you appreciate their work. And then you never know, 3, 6, 12 months down the line, you might be in need of somebody. And because of how you spoke to him, even though he might be very busy at that point, he'll remember and he'll think, okay, I can't do Callum's work right now. But Callum was really respectful to me last time I spoke to him through the DMs, and some of this work might have come from Callum, I don't know. So I'm going to refer him to my friend who I know is good. I'm going to refer him to a good person. So you almost take it on as the benefits that can come to you through all of those DMs that a lot of the time can be annoying. And as I say, I won't interact with every single one, because if they've approached me in a way that I don't appreciate, then I don't personally believe you're going to be worth taking on at any point in the future. If you reach out later on down the line and have changed the approach, that's a different story. But as I say, I think it was about 2 or 3 days ago, I had somebody, and his first sentence was, your website is crap, basically, or your website is terrible, I think was his words. Now, don't get me wrong, you caught my attention, but you caught my attention for the wrong reasons. And that's somebody that I would not want to work with. So you've got to be, and I take that as a lesson for my own outreach. When somebody's done something themselves, their ego is very much told into it. So if you go in and you're just slagging their work off, regardless of how good, he could have been the best web designer on the planet, at the best price, everything. But he's hurt my ego with what he said. And I'll be honest with you. So now I wouldn't take him on board. And at some point he might come across this episode and realise that's why I'm not reached out to him, and he might change it. And if he changes it, I'll still listen. But that's why you can take a lesson for every DM that comes through to you, because if you're not taking any time whatsoever to read them or to acknowledge them, you're not going to understand why you're blanking them. or you're not going to understand why, oh, that actually caught my attention a bit there. So networking can happen across the board, and you can learn from multiple areas of how to network well, how to network bad, and how networking can bring great opportunities to you, as well as, unfortunately, some time wasting ones. One key caveat that I want to add on to networking though is, as I've said before, you don't want to be spending all of your time throughout the day just looking to network. You want to be improving yourself as an individual needs to come at the top of your list, because right now, if I reached out to somebody like Bill Gates about web design, he's not going to see the message. He's definitely not going to read the message. His secretary or whoever texts his messages isn't even going to set, then nothing is going to happen from that. Because in terms of being well known, he's well higher. In terms of income, he's a lot higher. In terms of the service level and the skill level and the talent he can bring in, without me reaching out to him, he's way higher. You can't expect to network with multi-millionaires, billionaires, if you're just starting out. Now, you might get messages back, or you might get some sort of shout out. They might tag you in a post, or they might say something. I'm not saying it's not worth trying, but you've got to understand, in order to get to the higher levels of networking, you have to be at that higher level. You have to improve yourself, and you have to be the key focus in order to get into those circles. Because I know so many people that will say, I've networked today, I've spoke to this person, that person, this person, that person. That's brilliant. It is good to be speaking to those people. It's good to get the practice in. But if you're not putting any focus on your skill, you're not putting any focus on your business, you're not trying to close more clients, all of that network isn't going to serve you anywhere near what it can if you were also improving yourself at the same level. Because whilst you get value from knowing that person, they're not getting much value from you. And it should be an exchange. It should be, I know Callum because he does videos. And then, for example, I know Bill Gates because he does websites. And I know this person because they do that. And then it's a network that works together. So then if he's approached for somebody, by somebody for videos, I get the work. If I'm approached for somebody by web design, he gets the work, because we've all built up to that level together. But if they're not a massive fan of your work, they don't think your business is at the level that it needs to be for them to refer you, all you've got there is a name that you know. And there's no value to anybody from that. So networking's key, but never think that your networking needs to take priority over improving yourself, improving your skill, improving everything about you in other areas, because then your network will just automatically go up. If you are known as the best copywriter on the planet, people are going to want to know you naturally, because everybody needs it. It's a skill that's universal. Every single business could do with some form of copywriting. So if you're just the best at it, people are going to want to get in your network anywhere. Whereas if you're just, you've just got friends in the copywriting game and you don't really serve a purpose to it, nobody's going to want to know. You're just going to be the guy that people knows, and that's it. So always focus on yourself more than anything else. That being said, I do actually have a little bit of a networking challenge that I'd push to you guys and see if you can complete it, and two, what benefits you find along the way of actually taking on a challenge like this, and if it helps you either within your business or maybe even just within your personal life altogether. And that challenge is reaching out to 3 different individuals within your industry and either arranging a call or arranging a coffee, arranging something where that networking opportunity that you took on has brought something either to you or to the person you're reaching out to. And what I would mention on this is I've got 4 key things to keep in mind anytime you're looking to network or even just to speak to people online in general. The first one is don't overthink it, because there's going to be, if I set this challenge and you decide to take it on, there's going to be so many people trying to craft the perfect DM or craft the perfect way to get somebody on a call or get somebody in, allowing somebody to let you into their network. Overthinking is what will stop you doing it altogether, because you'll get to a point where you realise there's no perfect DM, or there's no perfect message, or there's no perfect way to reach out to them, so I'm not going to do it. If it's not perfect, I'm not doing it. Don't overthink it. Just look within your industry, within your niche, whatever business model you're doing, and think of 5 or 10 people that are maybe within the level or just above where you are, and think of what you can provide to them. So another tip is the value. If you can show somebody that you've got either a valuable piece of information, or a valuable piece of content, or a valuable even connection, if you know somebody and you know that somebody needs to know somebody, you can almost, again, act as that middleman of, I can see that you're looking for XYZ service provider. I actually know somebody in that industry. This is their portfolio. Do you fancy jumping on a call? And ultimately, what that'll do is it will get you used to speaking to people and just building those networks, even if it's a client, or a prospect, should I say, but you don't want to try and close them straight away. You just want to have a few conversations. You want to get a feel for each other. You want to say, I love their content. I love what they do. Do I want to work with them? Just speak to them. The worst thing that's going to happen, realistically, is they either say no or potentially blank you. Depends what type of person you are, which one of those is worse. But I'd imagine a lot of people, if they've got the time, and as I say, you're only reaching out to the people that are slightly above you in terms of business level, they'd be more than happy to speak, especially when it comes to business, because a lot of entrepreneurs can feel quite lonely when they're at the sort of bottom to middle level, because they're slowly growing away from the friends that they used to have because they're not starting businesses, but they're not at that level where everybody knows them and everybody wants to speak to them. So it can be very nice to have somebody that you just speak about business with. It doesn't have to be anything too intense where they're basically interviewing you, but it also doesn't have to be something where you start talking crap like the weather. If you're interested in video editing, or you're interested in podcasts, or you're interested in any sort of content creation, and you're having a conversation with somebody who's got the same interest, you'll speak for ages, and what you won't really, you'll start to grow, because they will let off little bits of knowledge and little tips that they know that you didn't, or tests that they've run and you haven't, and vice versa. So you can actually just help each other by networking, by just speaking and having a 5-minute conversation. You don't have to be reaching out just to seek some value out of them. You can just be reaching out just to speak with a person, just to have that sort of conversation. So it's 100% worth doing. I'd also make sure that you keep it local and accessible. So again, there's absolutely no point in everybody trying to message Mark Zuckerberg, because the chances are, if 1 million of us messaged, maybe one might get through. And I even doubt that, because he's going to have so many gatekeepers. You want to keep it to, if you're within the content creation for coffee shops, you want to keep it so you're speaking to local coffee shops, you're speaking to business owners of local coffee shops, or you're speaking to local coffee providers, local baristas, that sort of level, because they're within your town or within your city. They're accessible because you're not trying to speak to the CEO of Starbucks or the CEO of Costa or any of the big chains. So the likelihood of them actually responding is going to be good. It's going to be very high. And you're also going to be able to provide a lot more value to them than what you'd be able to provide to anybody else higher up. Because what a local independent coffee shop owner needs, say for example, if you sent the same message with the same amount of value, whether it was, a new recipe for a new coffee, or what trending coffees are around at this time of year, if you send that to Joe down the street who owns a cafe, that might be very beneficial to him. It might have been something that he's never had the time to research, or that he's never actually even thought of looking into. Whereas if you send that to Starbucks, they would have had that in the pipeline and in action 6, 7, 8 years ago. So it's absolutely worthless. So keeping who you're networking to dependent on the stage of your business, local and accessible, you're going to get a lot more response. You're going to learn a lot more, and it'll allow you to climb that ladder a lot quicker. Because, for example, if you start reaching out to everybody in your town and you start knowing everybody in your town, then you can start reaching out because you're known in that town, you're this guy, and word of mouth spreads. Then you can know everybody in the city, then you could know everybody in the country, and so on and so forth. So keep it within your circle at the beginning. Don't everybody start trying to send messages to millionaires and billionaires across the world, because the likelihood of response is low. And if the likelihood of the response is low, you're not going to be pushed to keep trying to do it and keep trying to network with people. And then another big thing is assessing the benefit to both sides. So obviously, again, if you're speaking to somebody who's in your niche, how are you going to benefit? And also ask, how are they going to benefit? What can you bring to them? Because if you're asking somebody for a 5-minute call, but they're super busy and all you've done is send them a way to start an email, there's no value for them. They're not going to see the point of jumping on a call because you've not brought anything you're not brought anything to the table for them. Whereas they know if they jump on a 5-minute call with you, you're going to get a lot of value out of them. And I'm not saying everybody's like this, but people want an exchange. People want to be able to see what benefits are in it for them. Why is it worth their time? Why is it worth the hassle? Because even a 5-minute call is a 5-minute call. You can do that walking around your house. You can do that whilst you're outside getting some fresh air. It's very easy to do. The whole premise of it is that idea of the 5-minute call. Is it going to be 5 minutes? How many questions are they going to ask? Is it going to be super intense? So make sure that the value is apparent to them. But then also make sure that you're going to get something out of it. There's no point in you reaching out to a load of people, say below your business level, because they've only experienced what you've already experienced. They've only got the knowledge that you, in theory, would already have. So they're going to be taking everything from you. And whilst it's good to give, it is absolutely good to give. And sometimes speaking to 1 or 2 people like that a week is really reaffirming in your own head. You don't want it to just be a one-way exchange. You want it to be as mutual as it can be. So always assess the value for each side. Now we move on to what I hope is the final viewer questions that are generated by AI. From this episode, I'm hoping that people start getting their own questions in, and I can actually start addressing exactly what you, the viewer, are asking me. Any questions that you want to send in, as always, through any means, whether it's my social media, which is at crvideoeditor.com. You can also check out my website, which will have links to them all. That's crvideoeditor.com. Failing that, you can always drop a comment underneath these videos. Whatever way suits you, by all means, just send me a message. I'm more than happy to include it in the show. And if you'd like to be shouted out whilst we do that, just let me know what your socials are, and I'm more than happy to give you guys a shout out. So the first one from AO this week is, how do I find networking opportunities? So the biggest networking opportunities I find is when, if somebody speaks to me, somebody reaches out to me via any social media platform, and I, 1, read the message and I actually can see the value in it, but 2, they've caught my attention for the right reasons, I will add. So there's been a few messages that have come through that I've read the whole way through, but I don't need a service, and I've come out the message, and then it's took me a second to realise, wait, he got me to read that message. I know how hard that can be. I've been blanked hundreds of times. I know how hard it is just to get somebody to read the message. Why did I read the message? How did he start the message? What was the deep-rooted value? And that, they've been the best ones, because then I thought, okay, I don't really need his service right now, but he's obviously been in this game long enough to make a message stand out. He knows what he's doing. If he knows what he's doing in DMs, he's definitely going to know his skill. Or he's at least going to have a skill at cold outreach. So he's still going to be somebody who's good to know. That's when I'll start speaking to people. And Where I do change on this, if I've read the message, I'm already interested, but I might not need their skill or their service at that time. Where I get frustrated is I'll be open and honest. I will say to people, I'm not currently in the market for a web designer. However, I really liked your message. I like the value that you provided. Definitely want to keep in contact, because if I'm ever in need, I'd like it to be you. If they accept that and say we follow each other, or we follow each other, like a couple of each other's posts, whatever, we go a bit back and forth of how long they've been on their journey, how long on mine, that's perfect opportunity. Where I start to get a little bit frustrated is when I do that and they're still trying to sell me. And they're still trying to tell me why their service is what I need to grow my business. And so that's when it can flip. It's gone from me looking at their message thinking that's very well put together. They've been really smart with how they've got me to engage. I like it. I want to speak to them. To now, they're just a salesman. They are just a salesman. That's all they're seeing within this exchange. They just want to sell. Now I'm not interested. So whilst it can be the biggest opportunities is just through people hitting me up in the DMs or whoever I speak to in the DMs, they can be the big ones. They can also be the worst ones, because there's nothing worse than just almost like a crazy salesman. I want to say, I'd imagine it happens to anybody who's got any sort of online presence, but the amount of people who I have going mad at me because I've just not replied to their DM, or they've followed up in the wrong way, and it's put me off them completely. I've said to so many people, I'm not currently looking to hire a video editor, but I like to have a short list of people. And when I've said that to them, they've followed up and followed up and followed up and followed up and followed up. And then I've got to a point where I can see their annoyance coming through, and it's put me off wanting to work with them, straight to the point where I blocked them and I took them off the shortlist. Because I'm like, I don't want, if you ever take over managing clients, I don't want you messaging clients like that, because I've got annoyed, and I'm quite chilled out when it comes to DMs. They don't bother me. But if I've got annoyed, you could lose people's business by doing things like that. So whilst there can be very good opportunities in them, they can also be one of the most frustrating. So that's where I'd say look at it in all different aspects. Another part I'd touch on with these is just speaking out loud what your goals are. So I think I mentioned within last week's episode, I had actually closed a client through web design, which isn't a skill that I sort of advertise. I can do it, but it's not something I advertise. The only reason I made that happen is because I spoke out loud that I can do something. I heard a conversation going on and I sort of interjected like, yeah, I can do that. So networking face to face doesn't even have to be going to events or going to conferences. It can just be if you hear people speaking about something within your field or within your skill level, just mentioning that you can do it. They might not go for you. They might know 5, 10, 16 people who have messaged them on Instagram that can do it. But if you're face to face and you have that chance to just mention it and say, yeah, I can do this. This is what I do. This is how I'd lay it out. Here's a bit of social proof. Don't have to push it. You don't have to be all salesy with it. You don't have to say this is the best website and it'll triple your conversion by 16.8. Don't do that. Very laid back, very sort of calm way. This is what I do. Here's the proof that I've done it. Let me know and I can sort it out for you. So face to face and just mentioning what your skills are a big thing as well. So they're the main opportunities that I think can be very beneficial to both sides as well. The next question generated by AI was, what do you say to someone new during introductions? So I had to learn this lesson the hard way again about 2 weeks ago. And what I realised is when I'm pitching people what I do, I get very lost. And I get very lost in the wording. I get very lost in being concise and saying the exact words that I do. And I've mentioned this in previous episodes, but go into a bit more detail now. You need to be hitting keywords. You need to be hitting key trigger words that your target audience, your target prospects want to hear. So if you're going to be, I'm going to use myself as an example, I do video editing. Now I can do video editing across the board, but I specialise in video editing for podcasters, so they're my target audience. if I'm at a podcasting convention or I'm at a video editing convention, there's certain trigger words that I would need to tell people within the first sentence. So they either know to gauge, so they either know whether to pay attention to what I'm saying or whether they're going to just sort of glaze over and move on to the next person. Video editing has to be in there, 100%. Short form video editing needs to be in there, or social media video editing needs to be in there, so they know that it can be used across multiple platforms. They know that if they hear short form, straight away they're going to think TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, other platforms where you can throw. I think most of them can host short form content now. Another word that needs to be in there is podcasts. Because there's no point in me going off on a tangent about I'm a video editor and I don't mention the fact that I can do video editing for that exact person. They're a podcaster. They could be in the market just for a video editor alone. If that's the case and they hear short form, they might then ask, do you do long form as well? Which I could say, yeah. But I want the key word to be in there: video editing, short form, podcasts. As long as those three words are thrown in there, what I do, the style of which I do it, and who I do it for. You're not going to include pricing. You're not going to include packaging. You're not going to necessarily include all the experience and this. And you want 3 or 4 key words in your first sentence that let people know exactly what you do. So if they're looking for a copywriter, they're not going to come to me. You could argue short form might not be in there, but I would personally imagine most people that look at short form editing or hear video editing just in general are going to ask, do you do long form as well? But if the conversation escalates, I can include that. And you want to include exactly what they're doing. So as I say, always specify for podcasters. So I want to make sure that podcasters know that. But if I mention podcasts and somebody who does video games says, oh, well, do you not do like this sort of editing or that sort of editing? Yeah, I can do that. I can do that editing, but I specialise in this. So it's something to definitely work on. And I was meant to research this. I believe it's called an elevator pitch. But you want to, if you're stuck in an elevator with someone for 10 to 20 seconds, you want to be able to pitch what you do, how you do it, and who you do it for to them within that space of time. Because you've only got that much time until, especially face to face, until they've lost interest. Their phone might go off, they might be late for a meeting, they might be getting off at the next floor. You need to be able to be as concise as possible of what you do. So work on an introduction. Whatever business model you're doing, work on an introduction that takes you no longer. I'd say 10 seconds. Because if you do it in 10 seconds, you've then got time for them to ask questions. You've then got time for them to, if they're intrigued and it's something that they're actually in the market for, you've got time for them to show you that curiosity. Ask more questions, you can then answer them, and you could potentially get some sort of work from that, or even just a network. They might just take your number or take your social media accounts. But I'll pass this on to XYZ. If they do that, take their social media and follow up with them in a week's time. You never know what might happen, but being concise and hitting those key phrases is massive. And as I say, I had to learn that personally a few weeks ago. That's why I love that question. So the final viewer question is, how can introverted individuals excel at networking? This is a little bit of a difficult question because I'm not an introverted person. I'm very much an extrovert. I don't mind being in rooms and speaking to people. It's one of the big reasons I like these business models, because later down the line, that's what it will allow me to do. But I do think personally, the internet solved that. I feel like the internet just made it so you can be an introvert, an extrovert, you can be both. You can still network, because you could sit in a chat room on Reddit or in a Facebook group and speak away to hundreds of people for an hour a day. And you're an introvert because you're at home, you're in your home comfort, you don't have to push yourself out there too much. And there's plenty of opportunities that can come to you online. Speaking, outreaching to people, especially cold outreach, I would personally say it doesn't matter if you're an introvert or an extrovert, but I'm saying that as an extrovert. I'm saying that as a person who's got no problem with rejection, who's got no problem being blanked, who's got no problem with people speaking to them in a crappy way, because I know at the end of the day I'm starting from this point, and I know later on down the line I'll be at that point and then that point. So it's never bothered me. So as an introvert, if you were somebody that doesn't like to put themselves out there, I'd definitely start with doing it online. Doing it online, speaking to multiple people, getting that almost assurance off of other people, getting other people to say, like, oh yeah, I really like this. Because as your work continues to get praise, as you start closing clients via DMs and your work gets more and more praise, you will build up more confidence in yourself. As you build that confidence up in yourself, it will almost push you to, if you've grown your business to the roof and to its current ceiling, and the only way you can push your business past that ceiling is to go out and speak to people face to face, you're then going to be forced into it. And I feel like those are the best types of situations to be in, is when you've got no choice but to do it. So as I say, if you want to grow a business and you want to grow a business by closing clients, and you class yourself as an introvert, you have no choice but to message people online, to email them, to DM them, to potentially arrange calls online, because you will have some clients that won't close unless they see your face, because they need to know you're a real person. They're about to give you money for a service. They need to know you're a real person. So some of it, it is a case of, unfortunately, you've just got to do it. And the more and more and more you do it, and the more people you close, and the more success you get within your business, the more confidence you should automatically get, because it's reaffirming in your head, okay, my product's good, or my speaking skills are good, or my sales skills are good, my service is good. Because if it wasn't, these people wouldn't be praising me, I wouldn't be closing them, and I wouldn't be making money. So yeah, the best, if you are an introvert, what I would personally suggest to do this week is make a list. If you, dependent on the business model, I don't know, obviously, if you're selling products, you could still potentially do the same. I'd get a list of 20 people, 20 businesses, maybe even local businesses. I'd get their numbers and I'd call them, and I'd just call them. And even if you get a meeting with one of them, I'd call all 20 of them. I'd call every single one of them. During Monday morning's usually a bit of a bad time, but you can always arrange for another time. Call them and just get used to being put on the spot and having to be that guy that is the go-to guy when it comes to your business model. If you're selling a product, phone 20 businesses that could use your product and could sell your product, that are potentially local to you, you could ship out in bulk and then they sell them from the store. Just ring 20 people. Because you will get no's, 100% you'll get no's. Unless you're selling solid gold, you will get no's. But if you know 100%, right, that first call was a no, now I've got the second call, now I've got the third call, now if you know you've got those calls coming regardless, you have to do those calls for that day. That no is not going to seem as impactful, because you'll start realising there's more people out there. And then notice what happens when you get a yes. Notice what happens when you get somebody who wants a face-to-face meet up, or who is interested and wants to rearrange the call. When you get that net yes, you'll realise all of those no's didn't mean anything. So practice. If you're an introvert, you're going to get to a point where you're going to have to force yourself not to be. And I think the sooner you start doing that, the better. So again, I'm hoping this will be the last time that I'm promoting the win of the week ultimately. I'm hoping from next week we can start getting people sending me in their wins. I can start giving people some shout outs, some recognition, sending you to their social media pages, because the win of the week is, as it sounds, I want you guys to be messaging in what win you've got that week. Did you speak to somebody on the phone? Did you slowly start to come out of your shell? Who, if you identified as an introvert, you're now slowly becoming a bit more of an extrovert. You've spoke to this person, you've spoke to that person. You did the networking challenge and you've actually now got 3 new people who could potentially be clients. You closed a client, you sold some products. Anything that you are proud of, that you think is a win, worth some recognition, worth being shouted out, and you want potentially even some attention to your social media pages, send them in. Whatever way that suits you, whether it's via my social medias at CR Video Editor, or whether it's on my website at cartvideoeditor.com. Alternatively, stick it in the comments and we can go back and forth from there. But this will hopefully be the last week where I'm just promoting it, and we'll go through a similar sort of version of what it would be. So this week's win of the week is James, who successfully reached out to a local entrepreneur and secured a mentorship that will guide him through the next steps of his startup. There you go. You've reached out to somebody, they've admitted that they're going to be a mentor to you. You're proud of it. You want to message me about it. I'm proud of it, and I'd shout you out like that. I just want to say for the record, James is fake. This was AI, but next week it won't be. Now we move on to the much anticipated tip of the week. Now this tip of the week, obviously keeping within the topic of networking, is going to be keeping a networking journal. Now, I don't know how you guys do your outreach. I don't know how you guys close your clients. I have journals for pretty much everything. I have systems for pretty much everything. So if I speak to a prospect, I'll mark it when I spoke to them, when I need to next speak to them, and how the conversation's going. I would suggest doing something similar to networking. I'd even potentially today just come up with a list of 5 to 10 names of people you just want to speak to, or 5 to 10 people in your DMs that have reached out to you and you've looked through their profile and think they're worth knowing, they're worth having a relationship with, they're worth building a rapport with, and just keeping track of, if you've got a business model that's going to at some point require a video editor, maybe even just open the notes app up in your phone, put the title networking and put video editor underneath, or put copywriter underneath, or put a web designers underneath, and just shortlist 3, 4, 5 maybe of people you spoke to, you like the sound of, you think that their work's really good, you think that their response time's really good, they're in XYZ time zone. You know, it's going to be worth starting to document and journal those sorts of things, because if everything goes how you want it to go ideally, you're going to be in a position when you need you're going to need those people. And rather than starting from absolute scratch and having to scour the internet for whoever's making videos, which can be a nightmare. I'm a video editor and I find it a nightmare to find other video editors that you can trust unless I've had that rapport with them via the DMs. So if I would come to finding copywriters, it's going to be 10 times worse, because when it's your skill, you know certain keywords that you're looking for, or know certain things that video editors need to be for them to be a good video editor and for them to work with me. When it comes to copywriting, I don't know, because I'm not a copywriter. But the more copywriters I speak to and the more copywriters you speak to, you're going to start to notice certain patterns, and especially if you start pinpointing the ones that sound good. Because if they sound good, doesn't necessarily mean they are, but if they sound good and then this person sounds good and they're saying similar things, you can identify a characteristic that's going to link them all together. What's the typical turnover? If you're asking somebody about a turnover rate and they say 24 hours and the next person says 24 hours, and then you speak to somebody who says 3 weeks, what are you, 3 weeks? These guys said a day. It doesn't make sense. So you're going to think they're lazy and you're going to shove them. And there will be other patterns that you start to recognise from there. What's your past experiences? How many people have you worked with? Price is a massive one. If you start getting prices, again, copywriting, I don't know, but if you start getting prices for £100 or $100 off of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 copywriters, and then you've got one who's 20, I would argue he's lacking the experience, but then you don't know how cheaply they're going to be running their business. So you might hear something like that and it sends alarm bells off in your head because everybody else has said 100. Whereas if it was the very first copywriter you spoke to and he said 20, you might go to him straight away because it's cheap, without realising that the reason it's cheap is because the work isn't as good, he lacks experience, he's only just started, or he's just using AI for everything. So asking those questions and journaling who you spoke to, what skill they've got, what you thought about time zones. I can't stress how key time zones are when you're freelancing and you need other people to be freelancing, because time zones can be game changer of you meeting a deadline and you not meeting a deadline. If I've got an edit that needs to be done and I have to go to sleep because I've got another client that I'm presenting to at 8 o'clock in the morning and I need to be sharp, it's going to be much better for me to have a video editor in a time zone on the other side of the world to me who can crack on with it whilst I sleep than having a video editor in the same time zone as me who has to go to sleep at the same time as me. So time zones is 100% worth keeping track of, but a journal just overall is a brilliant method to start using. So yeah, give it a test and see how it works for you. Again, I do just want to touch on this because I know we've spoke about networking so much during this episode. Networking and speaking to people is a massive part of business. It is something that's worth focusing on, and it is something that's worth doing the whole way through your journey. But I cannot stress enough how it's not the be all and end all. I don't care if you've got a network of 1,000 entrepreneurs who all have multi-million-pound businesses, but you as an individual bring no value whatsoever to any of them. You're just a glorified middleman. There is money to be made in middlemen. Nobody can argue that. There is money to be made from just knowing people who have certain services. Absolutely, there is. But you need to be at the same point, or at least building yourself to the same point as the people you want to network with. If you want to be in the room of billionaires, you want to be pushing yourself to hitting that billionaire mark, or that millionaire mark, or that six-figure mark, whatever it is. Don't get caught up in speaking to 20, 30, 40, 50 different people a day, and then it ends up detrimenting your skill and detrimenting your business because you just wanted to feel like you were doing something productive. Networking is great and it should be given some time and some consideration, but it should not be a priority, not in the beginning. The priority in the beginning is making sure you can provide value, making sure you provide value to your clients, or that your product is good, or that you're marketing well. Because if you send some social media content out there that is brilliant, that everybody can look at and think, whoa, he's done that really well, he's done this really well, that will beat networking anytime, because people will approach you. People will approach you and ask you how you made the video, ask you how you got it to go viral, what this you use, what that you use. Putting your name out there on a broader spectrum will serve you much better than just speaking to 3, 4, 5, 50 individuals a day, because you're showing people the value you have rather than just messaging them in the DMs and telling them. So do give it some attention. 100% network with people, and especially if they're reaching out to you, just have a conversation. They might be worth keeping in touch with, they might not, but don't make it everything that you're doing. Don't spend an entire day networking. If anything, I'd do that after you've hit all of your major tasks, after you've made your content, after you've posted, after you've done your client's work, everything like that. Don't make it a priority, not in the beginning at all. Now, of course, speaking of networking, if any of you guys want to reach out to me on any major social media platform, you can do so via CR Video Editor. If you struggle to follow me, just head straight over to my website, and that is crvideoeditor.com. Scroll down to the bottom, you'll see a link to all of my social media pages, as well as the video link to the latest episode of my podcast. So anytime you're worried you're not up to date, hit the website, scroll down to the bottom, and you'll see it there. Now, if any of you are scared of reaching out to me, or I've spoke about networking and it's brought some fear on you, worried you might get rejected, you don't want to miss next week's episode, because we will be speaking directly about fear in business and the best ways you can overcome it on a daily basis and just knock that fear straight out of you. So don't miss that. That's next week's episode. Other than that, I have been Callum Richards, and you've been listening to the Real Journey podcast.